Okay, sorry. Um, I have an exciting announcement. Sorry, I'm really excited. So tonight's episode is going to be a little bit special because in an effort to help grow this community, I have a totally free to enter contest that I'm going to be hosting and I want to share with you guys. So the information I'm about to share with you for it can also be found on my website under the podcast updates tab. My website is thatsickchickadvice.com. So the winner of the contest will receive a $60 donation to the charity of their choice. And since the majority of my listeners are either chronically ill themselves or have family or friends that are chronically ill, I will also be including with that a $60 value chronic illness care package tailored to your personal needs and wants. I'll have a list of items to choose from that can go into this care package, and you can sort of choose from the list and make it your own. The way that you can enter is totally free. I have posts that were created today on my social media accounts, so Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, about this podcast. All you have to do is share or repost any of the posts I made this afternoon, and each share earns you one entry. So if you share to the 3 different platforms, that gets you 3 entries. If you subscribe to my YouTube channel, that also counts as 1 entry. This contest is going to be running from today, February 3rd, up until 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on February 13th. The winner is going to be announced on my social media accounts on Valentine's Day, so hopefully whoever wins that care package can have a fun little Valentine to look forward to. I love you all and thank you so much for the support. Now let's jump into tonight's show. Please check the video description for trigger warnings on tonight's show. All right, so I have a genuine question that I've been racking my brain over for years now, and no one has been able to give me an answer yet. So, to all the doctors out there that have ever accused a patient of lying, wasting your time, seeking attention, how does any of that possibly benefit the patient? Because I can't even begin to wrap my head around what you think the driving force behind that would be. Seriously, let's break this down for a second. Going to the doctor takes time, and offices are usually only open during business hours when most people are working, right? So most people then have to take time out of their day when they would normally be getting paid to come and see you. And let's be honest, I live in the United States and healthcare is ridiculously expensive. So you'd also be hard pressed to find someone that doesn't have a copay. Now, not only are they losing money from where they could have been at work, but they're also paying money to even get into that exam room. And even if they don't work, 99% of the time, they're still going to have that copay. Now, a doctor's office is also one of the most vulnerable places you can be. I've yet to meet someone whose happy place is in a doctor's office. And if I ever do meet someone like that, I would probably fear them. I wouldn't even want to know what someone like that does in their spare time to unwind. Um, but anyway, now not only are they uncomfortable, but they had to pay to be there. And I can think of 1,000 ways to make yourself uncomfortable for free. So obviously, they wound up there because they needed to be. Then, after you accuse them of faking or exaggerating their issues, they end up leaving the appointment with more questions than answers and feelings of frustration and hopelessness. They do this about 50 more times until they find a doctor that takes them seriously, all the while living with their symptoms until that day arrives. Does that sound like someone who set out to waste your time? To lie? To seek attention? And whose attention are we even getting here anyway? I mean, it's not like there's anyone else in that exam room but us. There's no gold star or prize for lying to you about anything. So the next time your patient is talking to you, listen to them because what they're telling you is the truth. One of the biggest offenders I hear about that gets sucked into this devastating cycle is patients who are weight shamed at their appointment. Either being told that their weight was a self-inflicted issue and they aren't trying hard enough to lose it, or they came in for a totally separate issue but they can't receive the care they need because all their doctor will focus on is their weight. Like, hey, lose weight. And if that doesn't fix your problem, then maybe we can circle back in a few months, a year. Weight gain is usually the number one symptom of potential disease that isn't even viewed as a symptom. It's viewed as a choice. But the endocrine system is so incredibly delicate, and there are far too many diseases to name that influence a patient's weight, whether it's gaining or losing. Weight does not solely come down to diet and exercise. So, two crucial points I want to cover today are: first, how to proceed with an appointment when your doctor blames your weight gain or inability to lose weight solely on improper diet and exercise. And second, how to proceed if you go to a doctor's appointment for an unrelated issue, but the doctor only focuses on your weight rather than the issue that brought you in. The main struggle as an overweight or obese patient is getting your doctor to look beyond your weight as being the cause of your health issues. Instead, they should be at least open to viewing it as a possible symptom of an underlying disease. It doesn't happen with every doctor. However, the fact is the majority will see a heavier patient walk into their office and immediately use their weight as the cause for any and all problems that they're experiencing. Chronic fatigue? Lose weight. Body aches and pains? Lose weight. High blood pressure? Lose weight. Anxiety and depression? Lose weight. You get it. With this logic, they're essentially implying that there are zero causes for weight gain outside of uncontrolled diet and exercise. This leads to not only being dismissed, but can also bring on feelings of shame and embarrassment. There are actually studies on this by the NIH. It will often make you reluctant to return to any doctor's office, and this ends up being more harmful than helpful. So tonight we're going to go over a list of steps you can take to discourage weight shaming at your next appointment and make sure that you're heard by your doctor. First thing you're going to want to do is come prepared to your appointment. The number one topic of discussion during most appointments, if you are overweight or obese, are your diet and exercise habits. The best way to get ahead of this, since it will most likely be discussed in your initial appointment with any new doctor, is to keep a detailed food and exercise log for them to look over. You can use a paper journal or keep a log on your computer, then print it out if you prefer digital. You can also use food tracking apps such as MyFitnessPal or MyMacros Plus if you prefer an app. Those are good free or low-cost options. Many things can play a role in weight gain that are not about diet and exercise. Thyroid conditions, cortisol overproduction, growth hormone deficiency, diabetes, vitamin deficiencies, autoimmune conditions, and that's barely scratching the surface. When these conditions go unidentified, they can wreak absolute havoc on your body and mind. If you've tried but your issues just cannot be resolved with diet and exercise, this often results in you believing you're the problem, especially if you've been previously told by medical professionals that you're not trying hard enough, that you must be lying about how much you eat or exercise. But weight difficulties are a sign of imbalance, and you do not deserve to feel responsible for something that is often beyond your control when you're trying your best. So, presenting these things to your doctor up front can help you convince them that you're taking all the right steps and it still isn't working. Now they should be moving on and looking at other possible underlying causes. If there's a reason preventing you from being able to exercise, make sure you address that with them as well. I'll give you a quick example. So for me, I was unable to do much of anything, and I was bedridden for the last 2 years prior to my diagnosis. Due to how severe my Cushing's disease had gotten, my body was pushed beyond its breaking point. I was so fatigued, and my heart rate and blood pressure would spike into dangerous territory just from standing up that I had to stay in bed. So if you're like me and something is preventing you from being able to exercise, your doctor needs to be aware of that so that they're not making assumptions. The second thing I want to go over is response and redirection. So during your visit, when your doctor isn't listening, it's easy to get flustered and have difficulty finding the right response. So if you find yourself in that situation, I've come up with a couple responses you can give depending on the circumstances you're in. In the first and second examples, I'll be providing ideas how you might approach your doctor if they continue to view your weight as the cause of your illness rather than a possible symptom. Example 3 is going to be an idea for if you visit your doctor for an unrelated issue, but they choose to fixate on your weight instead of addressing those other concerns. So, the first example, and this is just a rough idea of what to say, you don't have to say it word for word unless you want to, is going to be something along the lines of I recognize that carrying extra weight can contribute to the symptoms I'm having. However, before solely blaming those issues on my weight, I believe I owe it to myself to have underlying causes explored and ruled out before continuing with a basic diet and exercise program. I've tried that and it just hasn't worked. Many underlying diseases can both cause and prevent people from losing weight. And since I've been practicing all the right habits, this leads me to believe something deeper is going on here. And if it is, I'd like to know as soon as possible so that it can be properly addressed. The second example you can use is something along the lines of, isn't it possible that my weight could be a symptom of an underlying disease? And if that's a possibility, wouldn't it be more detrimental to my health to let that go undetected versus ruling it out up front? I'd appreciate it if we explored that alongside a diet and exercise plan. Because I'm not opposed to that plan, it's just not yielding any results even though I'm following it. So that raises some red flags to me. The third example, you can say something like, I did not come in to discuss my weight today. I'd prefer if we could handle my main concerns, which are the symptoms I previously mentioned to you. So I'd appreciate it very much if we could come up with a treatment plan together to help address those needs as soon as possible. In my experience, doctors usually respond better to a rational, thought out response versus an emotional response because in their field, they need to use logic over emotion to justify the steps that they're taking to help you. Make sure that you keep your demeanor as relaxed as you can, although I know it might be difficult if you've already had several unhelpful visits. If the doctor is unwilling to help you after this, take it as your cue to find a new doctor. Don't waste your time with one who is unwilling to listen to and assist you. It's also important to note if your doctor does not take your request seriously or denies further testing, you can always ask them to note it in your patient file that you were declined a further workup or that they didn't address your concerns. You have that right as a patient to request that something be noted in your file, and sometimes to avoid having to do this, they'll agree to your requests. However, if they don't, at least it's now in your file showing what transpired during your visit. The next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to use email instead of phone correspondence. Limit or avoid calls as your main communication method if possible. Email creates a physical record of exactly what was said, and the truth is, if it comes time to advocate for yourself and you aren't being taken seriously, in the patient-doctor dynamic, the doctor does hold most of the power. As a patient, you may not always be given the benefit of the doubt when it comes to how your doctor assisted you, or if they assisted you. So if you have follow-up questions, new concerns, want to discuss lab results, or really want to do much of anything, try to keep it to email as much as possible. I know that some offices will find this annoying, but if you're in a situation where you're just not getting the help you need, the only way for you to protect yourself is to ensure that you have a copy of all records and communications. That way you can start holding parties accountable when they're not doing the job that they should be doing. The fourth thing you're going to want to do is you can bring support to your appointment. It is much less intimidating to visit the doctor if you go with a friend or a family member that you trust, really anyone who can support you emotionally. They can also help advocate for you if you need them to. If you're unable to physically bring anyone with you, you can FaceTime or call them during your visit. That's also a good option. That way they can still be in the room with you and speak to the doctor as well, because I know it can be overwhelming to go alone. So this step can help ease some of that anxiety. And I also found that doctors are more open to requests and suggestions when there's another party present at your appointment. The fifth thing you can do is you can take advantage of patient advocacy services. Many hospitals have a patient advocacy service, so call member services for your hospital and see if they can assign you a patient advocacy rep to help you. I've had to use this several times, and in my experience, they were very helpful and beneficial to have around. If you've been given the runaround and have been dismissed or been mistreated, they're there to help voice your concerns and needs as a patient. So just share your story with them as well as the goal you have for your treatment or any current needs. And I found that they can be a great bridge to the gap between you and your doctor. The sixth thing you can do is take time to research your doctor. Bonus points for if the doctor has reviews and they articulate that they take the time to listen to their patients and that their patients are happy with their appointment outcomes, because that's exactly what you're looking for. Using things such as online reviews, personal experiences, or word of mouth referrals, those things can help weed out the doctors with a controversial or difficult reputation. Some people will book with the first doctor that will take them, but this may end up hurting them in the long run, especially if it ends up wasting your time and money. So be sure you're taking the time to thoroughly search for a doctor, one that specializes in your area of concern and also has excellent reviews and is well admired. The seventh thing that you're going to want to remember is to keep calm during your visit. And I recognize that this may be extremely difficult, especially if you've been burned before. You might find yourself getting defensive, anxious, or even crying or getting angry out of desperation, and I don't blame you. I felt the same way during my appointments where I was ignored. However, when you're meeting with a brand new doctor, you don't want to bring bias or baggage into that new relationship with them. Give them the benefit of the doubt that they want to help you, at least until proven otherwise. Present to them the facts about how you are feeling, and just be sure to raise any red flags about your situation that you noticed. Common red flags when it comes to weight are if you struggled with weight your entire life and nothing seems to help. Now, this is normally blamed on your genetics, but a root cause should be explored because genetics are only a small portion of weight issues, and the majority of the time, it's a medical condition that has been chronically missed. The second red flag is if you had any rapid weight gain over a short period of time without any diet or lifestyle changes. Because if you've been the same weight for the past decade and all of a sudden you put on 50 pounds in 3 months without changing your habits, that's not normal, and it's not just aging like most doctors will say it is, or menopause, or whatever else they try to blame it on. It's a clear sign that something is very wrong. If any other symptoms preceded the weight gain, especially symptoms that may have affected your activity level, like shortness of breath, new fatigue, body aches and pains, dizziness, things like that. If something led to your weight gain that was abnormal for you, make sure that your doctor is not solely addressing the aftermath of the weight, but also looking at what led to it. And the last thing is if the weight gain occurred during a big hormonal event in your life, like puberty, or if you're someone who has a uterus, postpartum, or menopause as well. Because the sad fact is that most dramatic hormonal changes can trigger underlying diseases, especially if you are already genetically predisposed to those conditions. And the things that I see most commonly here are going to be Hashimoto's and other types of autoimmune diseases, and Cushing's disease. These are usually big things that, at least in my experience from the communities that I'm a part of, this is something that is a common theme with puberty, childbirth, and menopause. Nobody wants to be put in a position where they have to prove that they're sick and that they need help. Advocating for yourself over and over is a new level of exhausting. These tips are meant to keep the process as beneficial to you as possible so that in the unfortunate event you do find yourself facing the same situation again, that you're better armed to advocate for yourself. If you're facing pushback or if something deeply upsetting or inappropriate happens during your visit, you can always file a complaint through the hospital or the medical boards for your state. If you experience behavior that is unfair or unwelcome, like weight shaming, refusal to care for you, pushback, doctors blatantly ignoring abnormal lab work, which happens more often than you think, and the rate that I see it is kind of alarming, or any other form of intolerance, these things should be reported to the hospital or the medical boards so that awareness is brought to them because if no one is ever held accountable, nothing is ever going to change. If you need any special assistance or just someone to talk to, please don't hesitate to reach out to me through my website, thatsickchickadvice.com. Never feel like you can't ask for help. If you enjoyed tonight's show, please feel free to subscribe and share. Now, your financial status dictates a lot of things in this world, but it shouldn't dictate your ability to get help, especially when it comes to something as important as your health. So, all the documents and resources listed on my website are free. If you'd like to donate, though, I do have a donations tab on my website. No amount is too small. If you're unable to donate, just know that I still find infinite value in your support, and I thank you for being here. Keep fighting, my beautiful souls. Until next time.